Om Shanti. How are you all? So, the position of stars and planets, do they actually influence humans? Because astrology is purely based on the planetary position and the position of the stars. So, in order to find the answer for that, consider this example where a train and a bus going side by side. So, does the train movement influence the bus movement? No. Train is going on its way and bus is also going on its way. It just happens that they both go together. But even if the train stops, it's not going to influence the movement of the bus. So they don't have influence on each other. But you can say when the train goes at this point, the bus is also going at this point. But it doesn't influence it. And the basis of astrology is our life is predestined. And they are just foretelling that this is how you will be when you reach 10 years of age. This is how your life will be when you reach 20 years of age. This is how you will be in your elderly age. So it means it's already predestined. Is that true? Yes, it is true. God says our life is predestined. Not only our life, everything that we see in this world, whether it is plants, animals, birds, humans, everybody's activity is predestined for 5,000 years. It's a 5,000 year time cycle. God says this 5,000 year time cycle is a kalpa, and whatever happens in one kalpa, it repeats kalpa after kalpa. It repeats accurately. To put it in a simple way, if you are watching this video right now, it obviously means you watched it 5,000 years back on this very same day, and you will again be watching this same video after 5,000 years on the very same day. So it just repeats that accurately. So this coincides with astrology. Doesn't mean this is astrology, but it coincides with astrology. But does the movement of stars and planets influence humans? Absolutely not. It just coincides, as in the example of bus and train. Because even the planetary position is predestined. So our destiny is also predestined. So it just coincides. So it has no influence on us. But everything happens in this planet Earth that may influence us. You can say people living in colder climates tend to think differently, and their action, they may be more active than the people who are in the hotter climates. So it might differ, and our mind, it works very effectively in the early morning compared to the night. So they influence. Whatever happens in this planet influences, but whatever happens in the other planets that's very distant from us, it has absolutely no influence over us. But time definitely has its influence on us. This time cycle definitely has its influence on us, because God gives this teaching towards the end of the Kali Yuga, just before the destruction of the world, 100 years before the destruction of the world. And He informs us to get ready for the next Yuga called Satyug, that is heaven. God says, in the beginning, the world was created as heaven, filled with everything from health, wealth, peacefulness, blissfulness, anything you imagine, it will be there in heaven. That's why it's called heaven. And we were deities, we were filled with divine qualities. We were very pure, very peaceful. We possess all the divine qualities in the beginning. But as we undergo several rebirths after completing the first 2500 years, we started accumulating some devilish characters such as lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. When these 5 vices start to increase gradually, we start to lose everything we possess initially, gradually, like our health, wealth, beauty, peacefulness, blissfulness, like that. And in the end, we almost lose everything. That is exactly when God comes and gives this knowledge and help us to regain everything we have lost over the last 5000 years. How can we do that? By regaining the divine qualities that we originally possessed in the beginning, we can regain everything we lost. So what's the obstruction for that? These 5 vices: lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. Why did we fall for that? Because we became body conscious after entering hell. But while we were in heaven, we were soul conscious. We considered ourselves to be the imperishable soul that shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows. That is why even till date Hindus has this habit of wearing a red dot in between the eyebrows called bindi, because their consciousness was right here. It was from here they experienced continuous blissfulness while they were in heaven, while we were in heaven. But after completing the first 2500 years, we forgot that we are souls. Instead, we considered ourselves to be this perishable body, because of which we become selfish. Because we thought that our life is limited, so we wanted to enjoy as much as possible through all the senses. That is how we become addicted to these 5 vices. But the characteristics of these 5 vices is they give pleasure in the beginning, but ultimately they give you enormous amount of pain and suffering, because these 5 vices are sins. So they make us commit more and more sins, because of which we are receiving more and more punishment in the form of diseases, in the form of poverty, in the form of natural calamities. So a single kalpa can be divided into 4 yugas: Satyug, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. As we all know, Satyug is the number 1 yuga, where it is filled with everything and our soul is very pure, 100% pure. But slowly our soul loses its power. By the time we reach the next yuga, Treta Yuga, we lose some amount of power. By the time we reach Dwapar Yuga, we will be losing a bit more of power. By the time we reach Kali Yuga, we lose almost all the powers. So God now teaches us to become ever pure, 100% pure. How? By washing off all these sins, that is collected in the form of vicious thoughts in our soul from our past births and from our past life. How do we do that? There is only one way, but it is the easiest way. How's that? To consider ourselves to be this soul in between the eyebrows and remember the God also as a point of light. Because God is also a soul. He is called Shiva by Hindus, Allah by Muslims, Heavenly Godfather by Christians. God is one. The only difference between God and us is, although we souls and the Supreme Soul God reside together in this soul world in the beginning, we descend from there and enter this birth and death cycle that continues for 5,000 years. But God doesn't. He always stays away from this cycle. The only reason He comes in the end is to give us this knowledge and to make us eligible to enter heaven. And He takes an old man's body on loan for giving this knowledge. He doesn't take birth like us. That is the number one reason God remains ever pure. Although God wants everybody to come to heaven, not everybody believes in God's knowledge. Even those who believe in God's knowledge doesn't put God's knowledge into practice 100%. So there is a rank. So that is how 33 crore deities were formed. 33 crore status will be formed. Not everybody will be equal. The topmost or the highest rank is Lakshmi Narayan status. So that will be a kingdom. Lakshmi and Narayan were the first and the highest king and queen. So that is why in Hinduism, Lakshmi and Narayan are treated almost equal to God Shiva. But now, after getting God's knowledge, we know they are not God. God is only one. Only God Shiva, who makes us into Lakshmi Narayan, is God. So, if you manage to become 100% pure before the destruction of this world, then there is a pretty good chance that you can become Narayan. But still, as I already mentioned, not everybody is going to put the same amount of effort. So, if you are 100% pure, then you will enter heaven right from the beginning. If you are just 80% pure, for example, then you will be entering possibly at this point. Till then, you will have to stay here. If you are just 50% pure, then you will be entering the next yuga. If you haven't taken this knowledge at all, then you will be entering only in the beginning of the hell. Till then, you will have to take rest here along with God. That's it. You don't get to enjoy the pleasure of heaven. So that itself is a punishment for us. There are some who enters this time cycle only towards the end. They will just take 1 or 2 births in the end. So those are the people that are very famous now, those VIPs. Because they stayed with God and they are coming directly from God, they will still be pure. But this world is not pure in Kali Yuga. So what happens is, this world influences them to become Tamopradhan just like itself. Because the world is Tamopradhan. So there are 3 stages. Sato Pradhan, Sato, Rajo, Tamo, Tamopradhan. 5 stages. So Sato Pradhan means the beginning, the newest form, when the world is 100% new. when the soul is 100% pure. So that is called the Satopradhan stage, which is the beginning of Satyug. Here the world is Satopradhan, and even the souls that enters here is also Satopradhan. But in the end the world has become Tamopradhan, but the souls that takes birth for the first time, they are still Satopradhan. That is why they have a tremendous quality to focus on what they need to focus on. That is how they excel in their field of interest. Nonetheless, they are still in Tamopradhan world. So it will influence them and will convert them into Tamopradhan pretty soon. So that is why I said the time cycle definitely influences, not the outside planet. Likewise, if someone enters only in Treta Yuga, so they will be having lesser power compared to those who entered in the beginning, but still, since they come directly from God, they will still be pure. They'll be purer compared to the ones who have started their birth right from here. All these celebrities from politics, cinema, and spiritual leaders, they all belong to the category of people that takes only 1 or 2 births in the entire kalpa. So that is why they reach that height within a short time span. Not only that, they fall for lust, because of which they get punished, as we all know. So that is why the spiritual religious leaders, they fall for lust. Not because they are bad, they are actually better than the rest of the world. But in the end, due to the influence of the world, even they become corrupted. And the world, which makes them corrupt, itself give them the punishment in the end. That's the beauty of the drama. I said drama, you can even call it a 5,000-year cinema, because a movie, no matter how many times you see it, it's going to remain the same. Such is this 5,000-year drama. Not only that, every one of us is being influenced by everyone whom we come into contact with, even by the atmosphere, by the innate objects. We are influenced continuously by everything we come into contact with. By our family members, by the teachers, by the friends in the schools and college, and by the books we read, by the movies we see, by the social media. We are continuously influenced by the external environment. That is how the whole world becomes Tamopradhan at the same time. Just like any water that comes into contact with the seawater becomes salty. Now again, coming back to the stars and planets. In Purana stories, Hindu mythological stories, they don't say the name of the planet to mention the planet as such. Instead, they refer to a particular person, particular deity. Sun as a deity, moon as a deity, Jupiter as a deity. It doesn't actually refer to that planet. So, whom do they represent actually? Because as I said, there will be 33 crore deities in heaven. But not everybody take birth in the beginning itself. So in the beginning of Satyug, there will be only 9 lakhs deities. So the rest of them gets added gradually from the soul world. But once they take birth, they will definitely enter this birth and death cycle. They can never escape in the middle. So they will definitely have to complete this time cycle. But not everybody comes in the beginning, but everybody leaves this world together. Why is it that not everybody comes in the beginning? Because when the world is 100% pure, only the souls that has the 100% strength of purity can be allowed to come. Only then the world will not get spoiled in the beginning itself. That's the reason only they are allowed to come. All the others will be staying up with God. And God teaches us the knowledge to become 100% pure. How? As I mentioned earlier, the only way is to remember God as much as possible, to consider yourself to be the soul as much as possible. So by becoming 100% soul conscious, by conquering these 5 vices totally, you can enter heaven in the beginning. So since there are 33 crore ranks, there will obviously be the first rank, which is Narayan, second rank Lakshmi. Likewise, there will be first 8 ranks which were considered to be the lucky stars. So what is mentioned in the astrology or in Purana, they refer to the ones who takes first 8 ranks. So they don't represent those innate planets. So these deities who comes in the first 8 position, do they influence us? Yes, they do. Actually, they do influence the whole world. Yes. It is when they reach their first 8 position, the world gets destroyed and gets converted to heaven. So it is when the first 8 deities loses some amount of soul power, the yuga becomes the second yuga, Treta Yuga. So it is when these first 8 deities, especially the first 2 deities, Lakshmi and Narayan, when they start developing lust for each other in a very subtle form, that is when heaven becomes hell. And in the end, it is when Lakshmi and Narayan takes this knowledge, or it is from the Narayan soul. After taking 84th birth, he becomes an ordinary man. He doesn't know that he was Narayan in the beginning. That is exactly when God Shiva enters his body and he names him Brahma. So when God enters the soul of the body of the soul of the Narayan in Kali Yuga, that's when Sangam Yuga begins. So this is unheard of in any scripture. Only God reveals this yuga, subtle yuga called Sangam Yuga, that lasts only for 100 years. It's a very short yuga. That is when the transformation from the residents of hell to the residents of heaven take place. That is, the transformation of ordinary man into deities take place with the help of the knowledge given directly by God Shiva. And that knowledge is available in all Raj Yoga meditation centers totally free of cost. That is called Murli. It is also available online, both in YouTube and several other medias. We are giving the links in the description below this video. Don't miss it. Read Murli, listen to Murli daily and churn over it. More you listen to Murli, the more you churn over Murli over and over again, you get separated from the outside world mentally, which is essential for the transformation from ordinary men to deities. Because we need to protect ourselves from the external influences. The residents of Kali Yuga, they are constantly being influenced by everything around them. On the other hand, we, the direct students of God Shiva, does not get influenced by anybody. According to the directions of God, we protect ourselves. So we don't see like others. We see only the soul, not the body. So we know through the knowledge that it is the soul that sees through the eyes, that speaks through the mouth. So why should we focus on the inanimate body instead of the lively soul? Because that's the truth. That's the thing that operates this non-living body. It has some respect as long as the soul is with it. The moment it leaves the body, it loses all its value. So only two things are permanent in the world. One is the Supreme Soul and the other is the soul. So we see only the soul. We remember only the Supreme Soul. Because only by remembering the ever pure Supreme Soul, we become as pure as Him. It is only from Him we get the inheritance of heaven. So we must remember none but one God, God Shiva, as a point of light. So instead of being influenced by others, by following the instructions of only God, we become the influencer of the whole world. So, when these 8 jewels, you can call them jewels, those who scored the first 8 rank, you can call them jewels. That is, they are actually called Ashtarathina. But they are wearing Ashtarathina ring. It is just the remembrance of them. So when they put much effort to become 100% pure, the rest of the world automatically becomes somewhat pure. They will automatically put some effort because of their influence on the entire world. Here the only effort is to remember God and nothing else. So we become pure and we start sending pure vibrations around us. So based on the intensity of the yogic power, the pure vibrations may spread throughout the entire world if your intensity is like that. Then how about astrology? Do they not work at all? It depends on how faithful you are. If you are 100% faithful, it will work for you. For example, I was quite the opposite of what I am now before taking this knowledge. So 2 months before taking this knowledge, my close relative took my horoscope to an astrologer, and the astrologer, after seeing it, said that he will be totally opposite to what he is after 2 months. And the same happened to my surprise. But we see many famous astrologers fail in their predictions as well. So it depends. But after taking this knowledge, after holding God permanently, you don't have to worry about your future. After all, you are holding God's hand. How do you hold Him? Because He doesn't have His body. By remembering God as a point of light continuously, you are actually making God your companion. So as long as you are in remembrance of God, you will no longer be influenced by the external world. Only when you get influenced by the external world, your life will be in trouble. As long as you are not influenced by anybody else, you are quite safe. So that is possible only in the company of God, only by remembering God. So always remember God as a point of light and churn over the Murli points. Astrology as such was considered to be the guidance directly from God. So in the past, people used the guidance of astrology to seek the bride for their daughter, for their son. Because back then they didn't have this habit of loving each other, especially in India. So they give that responsibility to their parents, and they focused only on their work. They didn't give much importance to the lust. So that's why they were healthy, they were happy. But parents, even how do they know whether or not they are going to make a good pair? So they give this responsibility to God through astrology. So it worked pretty well and they were happy. But only when people take law into their hand, their life becomes complex and troublesome. So now, whether you follow astrology or not, you give your life directly to God and follow His instructions from Murli. Then your life will be always happy. Om Shanti. Thanks for watching and like this video. If you really like this video, hit on the like button, leave your valuable comments and share this video with your friends and relatives. If you haven't subscribed, please do consider subscribing.